we start a topic called Halacha. Halacha means the din and art of salting meat before it can be used. The reason for Halacha is that meat has in it blood. This blood is asur. We learned many times in the Gemara, the spirit of the living thing, or the bird, is in the blood. It courses through the body, and therefore this blood cannot be eaten. And it is so strictly forbidden that it's worse than chazer, worse than avela, isakaris. Therefore, we have to be careful to eliminate this blood. How do we eliminate the blood? There are two ways. One is by salting the meat. Salting the meat, salt has the power of drawing out, drawing to itself the blood that's in the meat. The salt is left out for a period of time. The second way is to broil it. Fire too draws, has a magnetic drawing power. This draws the blood out to itself, and the fire itself destroys the blood that comes to itself. These are the two ways that can kosher blood, can kosher meat from the blood that it contains. At the same time, the isur of blood that we learned before too, to remind you, the isur of blood becomes asur only when it becomes separated from the meat. While the blood is part of the meat, it is considered meat, not blood. So if you take a raw piece of meat, soaked completely through, saturated with blood, raw blood, eat that piece of meat raw. Some people could eat raw meat. It's a matter of taste. We're speaking not about taste, but about kashrus. A person could take eating raw meat without salting or anything, biting into that meat, and when it's full of blood, that blood is mutter. So this is because that blood is not considered blood, is considered meat. That meat should lie in a plate, and the blood oozes from it. The blood on that plate becomes treif. The blood on that plate becomes a chiyav kares. While it's in the meat itself, it's mutter. So in order to be able to cook the meat, put the meat in a pot and cook it, and of course the water will extract the blood. And while it's boiling, the meat will again absorb the blood, which means the meat will absorb blood that has become treif. The meat will become asur. In order to be able to cook meat, you have to first salt it. If you go about salting it, there are three parts to the salting process. One is soaking the meat first. You have to soak the meat in order to soften it. You soften the meat and be able to let the blood come out. The meat is hardened, say frozen meat. Salt can never extract the blood from it. So you have to soften the meat very much to make it real soft. And that is done by putting it into a pan. A special pan that's set aside for this purpose. You cannot use a kosher pan. A special pan used, fill with water, place the meat into this water and let it soak. The soaking period is 30 minutes. The proper soaking period time is 30 minutes. This information you have to know, must know, because a person never knows where he can find himself. You have to go on a trip a few weeks out of town. You can't trust the meat when they butcher there. Of course, you can take a little meat yourself, but let's say if you have to be in a place where you can't take that much meat. You have to go, let's say, to Hong Kong, Tokyo, to Taiwan, or some of these, they have these frogs that float across, and their business there, they have to go these laws, because there, it's best you can buy meat. You can't buy it salted already. You must know how to go about this. It's not too difficult, but it's a little complicated. It must be known exactly. You can't make a mistake. We said now the first step was to soak the meat for 30 minutes. Once that soaking period is over, then you take the meat and rinse it off from the blood that is on it. Then you place the meat on a board that's on an incline, a slant, going downwards. You put the meat on that board, and salt the meat all around, top and bottom, place it on that board. Now it's good that the board has perforations, little holes in it, let the blood seep out. Or, if it's on a slant, the blood will just run right down the board and away into a sink or someplace. If it's on a flat board, it's closed, the meat will then soak in its own blood. The blood will not escape. It must be a board that is on a slant and with holes, at least. These regular salting boards that are made on a slant. One side has a little leg, the other side doesn't, so it's better on a slant. Also, the board itself is not flat. It has little indentations, grooves, where the meat lies on these grooves, and the blood slides right down the groove off the board. The placing of the meat on this board takes place after the first washing, soaking. This is the second leg of the process. The salt that's used on this meat cannot be the regular table salt, because that salt would just sink right into the meat and would accomplish nothing. It must be larger size salt. It's called coarse salt, which used to be sold in tons. Today, just a few butchers use it, and that's it. You won't even find it in homes today. It's coarse salt anymore. That's what happened to the art of Menachem. This special coarse salt is made for the salting process. Is placed on this meat, and then the meat is now left for a period of 1 hour. The salting period is 1 hour exactly. After this is over, the meat is then rinsed off 3 times. Now this is the third part, is the rinsing off 3 times. The meat is then ready to go into a pot and cook. There's no more problem of blood. If there is any further flow of seeming blood color, is not considered blood, it's considered lohel, which means juice. The meat is then kosher to do it with as pleased. You could broil it too, of course, after the salting, or you can cook it, fry it, roast it, anything else. Now the one thing we have to cover, we have time for it, is b'di'emet. In other words, let's say it's Erev Shabbos Kodesh, and they awake to the fact that there was no meat for Shabbos prepared. You have to prepare the salting of the meat, which is 1.5 hours plus rinsing, half hour for soaking and 1 hour for salting, and then first cook it. And there's no pressure cooker, so it takes about 3 hours of cooking. It's hot meat, and there's only maybe 3.5 hours left to Shabbos. What do you do then? It then says in a case like that, to the evidence, it's just a chak and a Shabbos, then there's a certain leeway given. Instead of soaking for half an hour, you can place the meat into a pot, soak it a little, and rinse it off. Is that the way to have it done? Salting, which is regularly 1 hour, how much does it have to salt? It then says, the Talmud says that it has to salt the length of time it takes a person to walk a mile. Now this is all it says. On this we have the focus of the posek. Majority of posek, the first posek, should have hold that a mile is 18 minutes. 18-minute mile. Chavruta, some sefer, clearly very strong, very forcefully against this. Some say it's 22.5 minutes, some say it's 24 minutes. Which means that since the minimum period of salting is a mile, so they say that if it stands for 18 minutes and is not salted enough at all, it's still blood up. Let's go for 22.5 or 24, which would have said at least we can compromise to 22.5 but not less. What's the reason for this stuff like this? Why do some say it's 18 and some say it's 22.5, 24? It's based on this of course is not found in your day. Don't know your day when I find it there. It's based on the period of time it takes a person to walk a mile. That's what counts. Now, how much time does it take a person to walk a mile? How do you figure that? You know, it says that the average person walk 10 parasah in 1 day. A day means day, not night. 10 parasah in a day. And the parasah is 4 miles. It means 40 miles in a day. Now, how much then is 1 mile? If you have, a day is 12 hours, 12 divided by 40 gives you, how much?
3/10 of an hour.
How much?
3/10
of an hour, which is 18 minutes. Exactly. Because 12 divided by 4 would give you 3 hours. then divided by 10, gives you 3/10 of an hour. A tenth of an hour is 60 minutes, an hour is 6 minutes, 3/10 is 18 minutes. That's how we arrive at the 18 minute figure. However, the Gemara goes fiery against that. It says the Shaila is what's meant by a day. That is, there's a count between sunrise and sunset, and between the additional time it takes from the morning start till sunrise, or from sunset until the stars come up. Which means there would be 15 hours rather than 12. 15 hours divided by 40 gives us 22 and a half minutes. Others say it's 16 hours. You get 2 hours each side. It will give us 24 minutes. This is how we arrive at it. It's very important to know this because it's good to know every bit of information. But this you'll find is very much handy for many other dinim, especially when it comes to the time, so-called 18-minute matzahs. 18-minute matzahs, which are considered as having no chance of getting chametz stick or baking. And they are known as 18-minute matzahs, which means that when it comes to either side, we are machmir. Matzahs, we say, you don't take a chance to bake longer than 18 minutes, because that might be the mile. When it comes to the din of salting, we don't allow less than 22 and a half or 24 minutes, because that might be the mile. We are on both sides. This is very vital information, which is able to understand, learn it, understand it, and carry it out, and to purify the blood that we have. Down, cholas moli, blood in our heart. The left side of the heart means the Yitzhahara. It's called dam on the left side of the heart. Menachem says that the salt is the bris melach elam, the salt of the bris, which means stands for the tzadik. Tzadik is the one that can extract the Yitzhahara from our heart, purify our heart, if we allow this salt to spread over us. We accept teachings of tzadik we never to rid ourselves of the Yitzhahara, of the Talmud Bavly, to become emes, tired, pure to serve Hashem, Dusha and Tada, and thereby to see the yes, which is the kingdom of God.
Continuing in Posek Melicha, we said that meat must be salted, soaked, salted, rinsed. Those are the 3 steps to the dinner Melicha. If there is meat in the freezer, it becomes hardened like a rock. It's as hard as ice itself. So if you soak it, that is, if you boil it before soaking it, before melting it, then it wouldn't help much. Even if you soak it a little, salt it, it wouldn't help much. For instance, Erev Shabbos in a hurry. You're not required to soak it for half an hour. Just to rinse it and then salt it. And if the thing is hard as a rock, then of course nothing could salt would not help it. So in that case, it's got to be defrosted first. Even if it takes a few hours, it must be defrosted before you can start the salting process. If in the process of you soaked it, then you decide to cut a piece of meat into 2 parts, so there must be, the part that's now being revealed must be washed off again, because there's blood on the inside, must be washed off. Now, if they put meat into a pot of water to soak, or I would say this doesn't apply to us because we don't soak meat today. This applies very much. This is one of the most common shilas out. This is one of the most common places where people lose their meat and their pots and everything. A person puts meat into a pot of water, he forgets and he leaves it there. Not for half hour, he leaves it overnight for a 24-hour period. This meat was not salted yet. So what happens? If anything is soaked for 24 hours, submerged for 24 hours, it is exactly the same as though this thing was being cooked, had been cooked. You put a thing on the fire and cook it, it takes, let's say, half an hour to be cooked. And the same results take place with the soaking of 24 hours. So if you take meat that's not salted and cook it, it becomes straight, eventually. You take meat and soak it for 24 hours without cooking it all, it's the same as cooking. The meat becomes straight, the pot becomes straight, and so on. This happens very often if you have meat, you leave it in the refrigerator, in a pot of water, or even a little bit of water. When it's submerged partially and soaks for 24 hours or more, it's as though it was cooked. Of course, today's meat, fortunately, is all salted already. You buy meat today, chickens, or meat from the butcher, it's already salted, so there's no problem. We do have a major problem with liver, because liver is never salted in advance. We'll take up a bit of liver separately, and in that case, then, you have to be careful about liver in water. This is where big problems come up. As I said, liver requires a whole separate shear. We'll take it to another shear. Now, to explain this one plot, if you've ever seen butcher stores, butcher shops at what they call a shtichim, a shtiach watches and sees that the meat is proper, is right, is correct, and so on. Well, to know that you're buying from a butcher who's careful, they have these special symbols they write on meat. Kosher, hudach. Hudach means that it's washed, rinsed off. It's washed and rinsed off. The meat that comes to a butcher is not salted. So that meat, let's say, that was soaked in a pot for 24 hours, of course that becomes straight. So that meat that is different, you gotta be careful with that meat, more so than if you have meat in the house that's already salted. The butcher must be careful to see to it that the meat has been washed off. The first rinsing, it takes the superficial blood off, surface blood is washed off. That rinsing must be done during certain periods of time. And that is, for example, 72 hours. Within 72 hours, there must be a hadacha. Water always stands for chesed, and chesed is 72. Dam stands for Tikuney Zohar. It must be this chesed, you cannot go past 72. Understanding dinner, the blood becomes stronger and stronger. So there must be, within 72 hours, rinsing of the blood if you're not going to salt it. Let's say there's meat that stays in the butcher's shop for a week or two before he salts it, before he cuts it up. That meat must be hosed down. The slaughterhouses, they don't ship it out right away. The meat must be hosed down. And let's say in this while the meat is shipped to a butcher, it must be marked, hudach, this meat was washed, this in this day, this in this hour. It must be going, it's not by the day, it's by the hour too, 72 hours. If you have, for example, on a Monday, the meat was rinsed at 3 o'clock, when the butcher receives it by Thursday, 2 o'clock, 2 p.m., he still has time to rinse it, to catch the last hour. So that's why it must be marked on the meat, sealed and signed by the slaughterhouse mashgiach. This last time the meat was rinsed off was this in this day, this in this hour. The butcher knows he must rinse it again. If the butcher sees that this sign says it was rinsed off more than 3 days ago, he is supposed to reject that meat. That's supposed to accept it because this meat was neglected. What happens to meat if it was not rinsed off within 72 hours? So the time passed. What happens to it? It does not become tread. But it does become impossible to cook anymore. You cannot risk cooking this meat, that is salting it and cooking it. It's not enough to withdraw blood to stay 72 hours without being washed off. It becomes so deeply absorbed, if you salt it, will not remove the blood from that meat completely. Salting cannot help it anymore. So what there must be done, it must be broiled only. If, to the Yemen, meat was left over for 72 hours without rinsing, the only way to eat that meat is by broiling it. Despite this, the din says in Syrian Samach Test, which is the first Syrian where the Smicha boys studying, is the very first thing they learn is that since it may be broiled, even if you need 72 hours, so is it permissible to deliberately leave meat 72 hours or more? Say, I eat only broiled meat anyhow, so what's the problem? You're going to broil it, it's kosher. It's kosher, but the Chachamim say that you should not leave meat for 72 hours because you might be smart and broil it. So the other person might not know, take a piece off and salt it and cook it. So because of that possibility of forgetting that this is a special meat that must be brought alone, the chatchila, you're not allowed to leave meat 72 hours without washing. The chatchila, it's also completely. The evidence, if it was, if actually happened, he did leave it, then it's permissible to eat it only by boiling it because fire removes much more blood than salt does. That's why even then it's still kosher. Which means you have to remove the down from chol asmoli, the fire and salt. Salt is the tzadik emes, fire is the fire of chayah. And that way it becomes Yomini, Yomini Hashem, the emes, and see that yes, you're sitting here on me. The mitzvahs, Hashem is more and more trustworthy to pay for mitzvahs. There are some mitzvahs where Hashem pays and Adam has it for this world to be says Adam has it. Looks like one of those mitzvahs is the mitzvah of davening v'sikim. You get paid for it in this world too. Because v'sikim means you make a sacrifice, you have early, much earlier than usual. Daven, the reward is that when the clock keeps changing, today we daven later than usual because of v'sikim. Yet when you get here, getting paid back the minute you got up early, you ain't getting it much later. Basically it's changing, time changes. So from then on, the daven v'sikim is 5 to 6, or we wait until the time gets to normal and decide that this signature. We want to complete very quickly the dinim of melicha, salting meat. We pick up the dinim of salting, and now we spoke about the meaning of the time that meat has to stay with salt as 1 hour, the chatchila. If it's out of Shabbos and it's late, you're allowed to keep it there for a period of 1 mile. That's what it takes to walk a mile. We explained the mathematical cheshbon yesterday. How we arrived at that? Good? No? We did. 10 to the mile. 10 parsa a day, 40 miles. And we did explain it how we divide that by 40, and we arrive at either 18, if it's putting apart the number of hours between the beginning of the day and the end of the day, or 22 and a half, or 24. Explain to it. We go to Chumrah always. There's a din of a mile in reference to the melicha. The Chumrah we take a longer time. The din of a mile as they come in Chumash, the Chumash take a shorter time. You get Chumash early, 18 minutes. This is all in reference to salting. There are certain items that cannot be salted. Liver, for example, cannot be salted at all. Salt does not help. Although there is actually a machlekes, the Tom holds that salting liver does help. But the halacha is not like that. In terms of salting liver, if you salt liver, you can then cook it even. This is what we want to bring out. The point that one day, which of course all a person do not pass them like that. You cannot salt liver, that's fine. What that liver is so much blood, only way to kosher it is by broiling it. And while broiling it, we also sprinkle a drop of salt on it. First, of course, you rinse it off. You don't soak it, you rinse it off well. And then you put it on the fire to broil, put a little sprinkling of salt, and you finish it and rinse it off again 3 times. 3 times is the usual rinsing period afterwards. So, this is broiling it, takes the blood out. But we have 2 problems. Of course, again, when you broil it, there must be open racks once you go down. And the liver should not touch the blood that's in the rack below, because that blood is surely traced. It should be high enough on the rack above the pan below that receives this blood. So 2 items. Number 1, how much is necessary for the liver to broil before it's kosher to eat? Can you just broil it for a moment and it'll be enough? If you like liver very, very raw, not well done at all. And secondly, what happens after you broil it? Are you then allowed to cook the liver? Actually cook it. Because if we said liver is all blood, and then how much you take out, still blood left there, you cook it, it can become treif and make things treif. Those are the 2 shabbos. So, first shabbos about how long to broil it. There are different days for Shulchan Aruch. According to Teshuva, so you broil it only a little bit too, it's enough. If you like to eat the liver rare, soft, bloody, it's enough according to Teshuva. Today we find some person who are machmir on it that the boiling of liver should be, some say a half an hour's time, and some say it should be at least until it gets dry. So it becomes dry enough, there's nothing oozing out of it, then you can eat it. Depends upon the person how he's machmir on it. I've seen it, he once ready to sell, he wanted to do the Rabbi Nachman a favor, so we brought liver for him, and he sort of turned it down. So he was machmir to have it well done. It's up to the person itself, but I said there is possibility of being maker, possibility of eating it less well done, and the person wants to eat it all day, so he should eat it after it's broiled well. Secondly, about cooking it afterwards, making chopped liver, putting it into cooking or frying, same thing. Anything which is a closed pan on the bottom, frying it, fried liver, and so on. This definitely, no question about it, that if you are going to do that, the liver must be so well broiled first that it's absolutely dry. It's hard, thick like a board, and dry. Otherwise you cannot put it into a pan to fry or pot to cook. There are some who, under no conditions, would cook liver. I feel that's far, although, of course, most places, the vast majority hold that it's allowed to cook it after it's broiled well. Because of the danger of liver being all blood, you better not take a chance of broiling it and cooking it after broiling. That again, it was up to each person. But according to Dini, you are allowed to be making and cook it only if the liver is definitely so completely broiled that there is no trace of any liquid coming from it whatsoever. Then you may cook it. These are the halachas, basic halachas of salting meat. The heart, the person wants to eat the heart, you should tear it apart and let the blood come out of it. We just learned that in Gemara, Shabbos. At the same time, we also know that the Gemara says, and Shulchan says it is advisable, a person not to eat the heart of an animal. Of course, we don't want to inherit any inherent traits from the animal, which are found in the heart. And even if some say this is impossible eating the heart of the animal, it's what they say. Obviously, what the Gemara says, it is possible, therefore it should be avoided. As a matter of sakana, from a mental point of view, there are some people whom it would be very beneficial to. If they go up to them with the negative of the heart of an animal, it would be wonderful today. But as far as the din says, a Jew who's supposed to have a good heart should avoid that. Let's be zecher to the fully mitzvahs, the simple, pure amunah, the schush amunah, which is the Yashkel Tzayim. Amen. Start a new set of halachas. Dealing with tefillas kelim. The din says, you get kelim, any kind of utensils that belong to a guy, that are the property of a guy, and they are transferred, become the property of a Jew, any manner, but become the property of a Jew. It's not borrowed, it's bought, it's received as a gift. Just by the Jew taking it over, it does not make it permissible to transfer kelim from an ownership of tumah to an ownership of Bahama Kedusha requires going to the mikveh just as a guy himself. He has to transfer to convert to a guy to a Jew, he has to go to the mikveh. So too, does the kelim of a guy have to go through this process of mikveh. In placing these kelim in the mikveh, it must be a kosher mikveh, one that is kosher for the strictest rules, except for the size of the mikveh is different. the bracha made on this tefillah is Asher Kishus, there's also no tefillas keli if it's one, no tefillas kelim if it's more than one. The dipping is done only once, and that's sufficient for the go through one of the dippings. The question is only the biggest question of tefillas kelim is which kelim require tefillah, which do not. Now, if a kelim requires tefillah b'nadin, it also requires a bracha. If there's a suffix, if it requires tefillah, then it should be given tefillah, but without a bracha. If it is positive, it doesn't require tefillah, then it's completely excused. So those kelim that require tefillah definitely are any kelim made of any kind of metal whatsoever. Any kind of metal or glass. Glass includes all types of crystal and so on. Anything in the metal family, regardless of how cheap or how expensive, give you the lowest tin, most expensive platinum, still requires tefillah, and any kind of glass requires tefillah. There are kelim that are questionable. For example, a kelim that's a combination. You have a kelim that's all wood, and it's got a band of iron around it, like a barrel. Regular kegs are barrels that are made of solid wood with bands of iron on top and on bottom to hold the strips of wood together. And that has iron in it, metal in it, but the kelim is made of wood, so this requires tefillah, but without a bracha. The plastic dishes all are completely exempt. No plastic dish has to be brought to the mikveh at all, even without a bracha. Earthenware kelim are exempt, but if there is any smoothness to them, today we don't have this type of old type of earthenware kelim, a smooth, glazed, finished, or porcelain kelim, those require tefillah without a bracha. So anything that has a relation to metal or glass, like porcelain, for example, is glazed. It's a glazed finish. It has a relation to it, it must have tefillah. If it has no relation to it, it is exempt completely. Today there are very few types of materials made. They're all bunched together in families. The family of plastics today, which is taken off the market, there are different types of plastics. They all do not require tefillah. But you do have plastics today that have a glazed finish. A glazed finish, literally a glazed finish, which puts that into a problematic state. Those should be tabled without a bracha. Only if you have the regular aluminum pots and pans or silverware, all those, of course, require a bracha. The regular chinaware kelim, dishes, require tefillah, but without a bracha. This is all if he bought the item from a guy. If he borrowed it from a guy, or he rented it, it does not require tefillah at all. If he borrows new kelim from a Jewish store, and the owner is a Jew, but the dishes, the manufacturer of the dishes are goyim, then of course it requires tefillah. But he borrowed it, so if it was borrowed from a guy, he'd be exempt. Why is he exempt if he borrows from a guy? Because eventually, the one the guy will sell it to permanently, will eventually make a bracha on it and table it. Here he's borrowing from a Jew, it's already been transferred to a Jew temporarily. So in this case, he has to make tefillah without a bracha, and the instructor, when he gets it back, has to mark it off to note that this kelim cannot be tabled again. It could be tabled, of course, 100 times, but it's already been tabled, it became pure already, so the customer who buys it must be warned, do not make a bracha on this kelim. It's true it comes from a Goyish factory, but it's been tabled, a bracha be the Torah. So he has to mark that out very carefully. Of course, this happens very rarely. They start keeping a Jew lends a kelim to another one that's not his, but it has to be known because this reflects a different in it. If true, if a Jew gave material to a guy to make up for him, he gave him silver or something, he told him to mold a dish for him, and then it's the Jew's silver, the guy's labor, and he did as he has to table it without a bracha. It's not to table, to purify everything that we are related to, we relate with, not ourselves. Of course, our heart is also we're related to our heart to a good degree, purify heart and beast. Every day Hashem me ever, so we can be able to see the biggest girl saying with heaven. The din of koshering kelim. Speaking now about tefillas kelim, which means you buy kelim from a guy. You buy kelim from a guy, which is new, and in order to use it, you first have to table it. Anything coming from a guy must be tabled. Same as the guy himself, the kelim of the guy's property must be tabled. In this way, it becomes purified. It becomes converted. Same as the guy himself, in order to become converted to kedusha, to a Jew, must go through tefillah. Besides, a male goes through this tefillah too. Let's say a goy has nothing but tefillah. Tefillah does the entire conversion. So too, a kelim, in order to become pure, have to go through this tefillah. Now, the Shaila, a special din where it's not new. We said until now, a kelim which are brand new. Brand new kelim of a guy, he manufactured it, has to be converted to tefillah. What if it's not a new kelim? And the Jew wants to buy this kelim. It's a good set of cooking Tupperware, a special kind of aluminum-ware, which is a very good set of pots, so in very good condition, but it was used by a guy. This means, as you are all bucky already knows halachas, the pots, having been used with tray for food by the guy, have absorbed the fats of the meat, the tray for meat. This fat is absorbed in this pot. How do you use the pot now for kosher? You have to kasher the pots. How do you kasher it? That's the special way of hagolah, where you boil up a big pan of water, large size, where the pots can be submerged into this. The water must be boiling. The temperature was actually boiling and bubbly. You dip these pots into this water, and then take it out and wash it with cold water. It becomes kosher. The same as silverware. That's the order change. The purified silverware, which happens in every person's house now too. You get a wife who's a little bit careless, or you get a husband who doesn't know what he's doing, takes the wrong spoon or the wrong fork and uses it for the opposite kind of food, takes the fork to use for fleshing a meal, the spoon to put in the fleshing a pot where they're cooking soup, which makes the spoon treif. If you want to treif, put the pot with the soup too. Yiddish Shlomozolik is not careful, or Shlomozolik said it's a female Shlomozolik. In that case, let's say the spoon becomes treif, you got to kasher it also in the same manner. When you first leave the spoon, you think being kasher for a 24-hour period, make sure first that it's clean. It's perfectly clean on the surface. 24-hour period of leaving it lie, rest, and then it's first kasher. Now, we have again this problem of the pots that are bought by a guy. You have a set of pots, or make it silverware. Let's say you have silverware that's used, but good stainless steel or regular silverware, or solid silver. There's a reason why you want to buy it from this guy. Very good set, and it's a good buy, but it has to be tabled, but it's also treif. It can't be tabled. If it was new, it's just a matter of tabling it. This is treif. The silverware is used for all his chazadai, so you must kosher the silverware. How? By cleaning it off first perfectly, and then leaving it stay 24 hours, and then you boil up hot water, boiling water, and put the silverware in one at a time. One at a time. Very different than tefillas kelim. Put it inside one at a time, drop it into the hot water, boiling water, then take it out and rinse it off. So the question now is, which comes first? We have two things that we kosher here. We've got to kosher the silverware from the fats that's absorbed in it. You also must convert the silverware from guy to Jew. Which one are you supposed to do first? Did you first convert it to a Jew and then take out the fats that's absorbed in it? Or should you first remove these fats absorbed and then convert it? And then says, you must first kosher the silverware. Kosher means to make it no longer any trace absorption in it. It's pure. And then you convert it. And you table it, dip it in order to make it liquid for a Jew to use. The reason is, the Torah brings it there's a posek ach es hazohar. It says only the gold. They went to the battle against Midian, the spoils of war. It says that just only the gold, the silver you should dip and be tabled. Why does it say only? only reason, nothing but the gold. If there's rust on it or there's something added to it, or you have anything in the gold or silver absorbed into it, get rid of that first. So your table, it must be just the gold alone, just the silver alone, just the silverware, the pot alone, that's all. This is a very important thing to remember. You must first kosher it, and then table. And this is, again, those of you who are getting married now, or want to married, will have to go out to buy dishes, silverware, pots and pans, get a truck to bring it to the mikveh, table the entire thing in the mikveh. It's easier to table than it is to kosher, because koshering silverware, they have, let's say, a 100-piece set of silverware and 640 pieces of pots and dishes like we have. I see women have no end to these things. They buy it, it's endless. These are the Dwada Shelahim Shir. We were buying kitchenware. So there, you have to kosher silverware. You got to take the silverware and drop it in 1 spoon, 1 fork at a time with this boiling water. You can't have them touching it, yesterday they wouldn't touch it. Table dishes, you take the whole set, dump it into the, hold it by a string, dunk it into the water, table the whole thing in one shot. 2 plates together, but the water will definitely not go inside through the 2 plates, and it's kosher. Oh. The water will not, if you take a person going into the mikveh, woman going to the mikveh, neither, and there's any chatzitza, a little hair on the body, and it makes the whole mikveh puzzle. Right? The mikveh becomes puzzle complete, 1 drop, a tiny, a remains of, I say, a band-aid, a little string is on the finger, and the whole mikveh is completely zero. Nothing at all. And here we say, you take 2 plates that require mikveh, the same as kosher mikveh as a woman, it says. Same kind of mikveh. 2 plates, jammed together, put it into the water, take it out, in between the 2 plates, there was no water got to it at all, and yet it's kosher. What's this? The answer is, the Gemara is Lochem, the 13th Pedig, also Samoli Benekon, you have a whole Torah on that, which I once said to my Chassidut. Talk about Chassidut. That was my book with the Chassidut. Okay, so anyhow, this is the halacha is that you're supposed to, you can dip them a lot of together, but as I said, for those of you getting married, you have to watch out, because I've seen a lot of Chassidim going to the mikvahs, creating a whole truckload, they hire a U-Haul, or they hire one of those moving vans that go across country, because they get a lot of gifts, you know. They go and dip inside, they bring it back, they unload, and it's dirty water, but they're not mikvah. Then they start putting out the came on the dishes, and a loud scream goes up in the palisa. He says, "Look at this, you idiot!" No, idiot. She's just married. He says, "You." He says, "Look, you left the labels on all the dishes. Label is a chatzitza. That's not like two plates together. If there's any label on a dish, on a pan, there's no tefillah. Mikvah was 0. You got to get the labels off. Some of them will place it on with some kind of a glue. That's why you use a settling torch to get that glue off. So this takes about 3 or 4 years by the time the dishes are ready to, or maybe tables. But this is what you got to go through. Never when you get married. Besides the wife, you have to have this too. So, it's one of the enjoyable parts of the marriage. You got to be careful not to go in vain. Take the dishes to mix in vain. Be sure that the dishes are completely cleansed of any kind of labels or these magic markers. The magic marker goes, if you want to see the price, they just rub off. If you want to get them off, you want to mix they don't come off at all. They use a special magic, 2-way magic thing. You got to work hard to get all these things off because you got to dip the keli alone without writing on it, without labels on it. Must be pure. That's the end of tefillah for kelim. Sometimes the keli is so heavy. Just 1 second more. Kelis are so heavy that you can't, or so large, you can't drop it into the mikveh. So it's clay or special china. Drop it into the water, and you'll have, instead of 1, you'll have 5 small ones. It will disintegrate, you burn the 5 other ones. So since it's a very expensive keli, especially when you get married, you know about these things. You get expensive crystalware, which you wish you didn't get. and you look at Hara, and your wife says, "Oh, how pretty." You're stuck with this till eventually you get somebody gets married, you give away as a gift too. Or other ways you bribe her to get rid of it. Anyway, you got to go to the mikveh, and you look at the waters of the mikveh at the bottom. And I can only let it slip through my fingers, get rid of it, break it, but you can't. You can't let it in the water too. So that in this day, you're going to hold on to it tight. Your fingers will stop the water from getting onto this dish, which is a chassidut, separation. You have to first dip your hand into the mikveh, and then hold on to the keli, the dish. The water of your hands is now clean mikveh water, or clean, it's mikveh water. You put in the keli, holding on to the keli at the time, and it's still tight. You cannot dip it twice. In other words, one half and then take it out and dip the other half. It must be at one time, except in certain cases, extenuating circumstances where you can't dip the whole keli. Let's then give you regular cases, not because we take exceptions to the as I went to it. If the keli has a very narrow opening, it's a bottle, very narrow bottle opening, and the entire surface of the keli must be touched by water. You dip the bottle inside the water, take it out, the inside will not get dipped. So you got to put it aside and let it wait there until the water fills up the entire bottle, so it's tabled inside and outside. It's important to remember because you get some of these narrow openings for any kind of dishes. Tea kettle, for example, any dishes that are deep, you must fill them with water in the mikveh. The inside, it must be tabled as well as the outside. This cannot be done on a Shabbos. Shabbos or Yom Tov. A person sometimes gets a new keli. This happens many times. It's sad. You get a new dish for Yom Tov, and your wife says to you, "I have no pot to cook on Yom Tov. Be sure you table this pot before Yom Tov." And you say, "Of course." "Well, sure." She says, don't forget, otherwise you have no food on Yom Tov." And you say, naturally you forget, end of Yom Tov. Comes Yom Tov, you go, "Oh yeah. You don't mind so much that you won't have food as much as you have to face the music." Well, this is a very big problem, and I would say it's a very easy answer, but I say, don't forget, that's the answer. Let's not forget, let's have that shift off. There's a special trick that's used in a time like that, but we're not out to teach you illegal tricks, so we'd say better don't. The Shabbat comes, you'll ask it then. But the best thing is, don't start up with the, what they call the FBI or the wives. None of them should be started. I mean, the Revenue Bureau for the wives. I think we should be zeichet to the end of this time of ourselves and our hearts, because really the end is pure from any chavruta, any kind of rust that falls upon us. The end of Hashem, the end, and that's good to see the Mashiach. We completed dinner today of Tfilas Kelim, table Kelim. One day we started yesterday, explained how if a person has a new keli on Shabbos or Yom Tov, and Yom Tov, for example, Shabbos, let's say, dishes he has to serve in. Yom Tov he has to cook in. And he has no other dishes. He forget to table them Friday or end of Yom Tov. So he is desperate. There are two ways to correct this. One is to give the kelim as a gift to a guy. Give it as a gift to a guy. Then borrow it from the guy. We said before that if you borrow a kelim from the guy, you don't have to table it. Only if you buy it or receive it as a gift. But if you give it back to the guy as a gift, and you borrow it back in return, it's only a borrowed kelim. Does not require any tefillah. At the same time, this also brings up a question where Halacha we have before Pesach. Remember that you sell your chametz to a guy. So that's not the rabbi, it's the guy you sell to the rabbi. And what happens is that any chametz in your house is sold, becomes the property of this guy. The food becomes the property of the guy. What about, when you learn so much about dishes absorbing, you cook in a pot that absorbs. Why should you get pot, for instance, cannot be used for milk, because even though it's clean, there is still some meat in the pot, absorbed in the metal. When you have chametz that cooks in a pot, that chametz is real chametz. The pot is clean, but there is chametz in your house in that pot. It has to be sold to a guy too. So if you sell that pot to a guy, after Pesach is over, how can you use your pots, your dishes? So you're getting it back to a guy now. You're buying it back to a guy. What does the rabbi do? He sells it to a guy and he buys it back for you. So you bought pots from a guy now, dishes, take your whole house and dip it into the Atlantic. They dip it in the A&P. The tendency is that these shrewd rabbis are not so unclever. They know how to do it. And they make the contract to the guy. They tell him that these pots and pans and dishes belong to the Jew. We're not selling you 1 inch of that. We're selling you only all the chametz that's absorbed in that pot. Whatever that's worth, a red cent for the entire shipment, that's what you're buying. Only the bluya, the chametz absorbed in that pot. But these are things you have to be aware of. The person who's asleep at the time doesn't think about it, finds himself in a lot of hot water afterwards because he's got problems that come up. That's why you need smart lawyers in every case. One other thing, though, it is possible. And we said that you're not allowed to, on Shabbos, to be table like keli, you're not allowed to, because that's called Mesakin Munah. In Mesakin, you repair, or you amend, you perfect the keli. It's the same as manufacturing a keli. Before that, it's not fit to drinking in, and now it is. You cannot take a keli, put it in the mikveh, and dip it on Shabbos. What then? You could play it as a trick. You could very nonchalantly, we use that word, take the keli, and say you decide you need some water to wash. So you dip it into, make it take some water in this dish, in this cup, this glass, or pot. You need water to wash things with. So you put it inside the mikveh, take the water out, and use that water. And you say, by the way, that thing has just been dipped into the mikveh. Imagine that. So we have a pot that's inadvertently, very, very accidentally, deliberately, was made kosher in a kosher manner. You didn't mean to take a chas v'shalom, heaven forfend you. You had to get water. So if in that manner it came out, it just resulted in the fact the pot is kosher, it's been tabled, then it's okay to use for Shabbos Yom. These are all tricks that are a little risky. You have to know how to do it, and do it under careful directions. Read the labels always. The Shulchan, how to go about this. I think that a person should see from this, and at all costs, he should try his best to always eat food from pots and dishes that were tabled. You know that there's no tumah that goes about tumah's goy. The Gemara says the air of the land of the goyim is tumah. The air, the soil, the ground is tumah. Everything about the goyim is tumah, and you have to keep purifying everything in this world. Like a million of us as a person who's living in Chutzlatis can purify the air and the ground to make it fetus category of yourself. We should definitely purify that, our surroundings, and above all, ourselves. Purify ourselves and fetus yourself. We should be looking at Torah, and there should be emes, Tachtada, Kashrus, Tzadik and Arizal. We should see, yes, we should see them here. Amen.